Friends, this isn't just a story. It's a journey into one of the darkest, most desperate experiments of World War II. A tale where technology, madness, and human lives collided in a deadly dance. If this kind of history grips you, if you want to keep uncovering forgotten wartime secrets together, make sure to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice truly matters. Now, brace yourselves. We're heading to September 1944 to a secret German test site where a flying monster was born, a machine called Reichenberg, a shadow born of desperation. Picture this. Autumn 1944. The once invincible Third Reich is collapsing. The Allies have landed in Normandy and are pushing eastward. From the other side, the Red Army is rolling west like a steel tide, already standing on the banks of the Vistula. The skies above Germany no longer belong to the Luftwaffe. They belong to the swarms of American flying fortresses and British Lancasters, reducing cities to rubble. And amid this chaos, a new idea takes form, an idea born of despair and fanaticism. A weapon of last resort, meant not just to destroy, but to terrify. A weapon designed not to win battles through strength, but to crush morale through fear. A weapon powered by human sacrifice. From the deadly V-1 flying bomb, that buzzing terror over London, emerged its far more terrifying sibling. The Fiesler Fi-103 or Reichenberg, a manned flying bomb. This was no ordinary aircraft. It was a paradox, a coffin with wings. A pilot would climb inside, knowing there was no way back. The Reichenberg wasn't about innovation. It was about how far a regime could go when it stopped valuing human life. It was the embodiment of technological despair. The robot ancestor, the V-1 buzz bomb. To understand the Reichenberg, we have to start with its predecessor, the V-1 or Virgil Tungswaff 1, meaning weapon of vengeance. The Allies nicknamed it the buzz bomb or doodlebug for that horrible stuttering engine sound that haunted Londoners' nights. What was it? Essentially, the V-1 was the world's first mass-produced cruise missile, a steel cigar with wings, powered by a pulse jet engine that coughed its way through the sky at around 400 miles per hour. How did it work? Crude, but effective. Engineers preset the direction, altitude, and flight time. A small propeller on the nose counted rotations to measure distance. When it reached the target number, the controls shifted, the engine cut out, silence fell, and then came the explosion. The economics of terror. Let's look at the brutal math. War, after all, is arithmetic with blood. A single V-1 cost about 3,500 Reichsmarks. Compare that to a Heinkel He-111 bomber, which cost roughly 270,000 marks and required a 5-man crew, fuel, maintenance, and training. For the price of one bomber, the Reich could build almost 80 V-1s. That was mass-produced terror. Cheap, automated, and terrifyingly efficient. Accuracy didn't matter. Fear did. Imagine being in London in 1944, hearing that engine's drone suddenly goes silent, knowing that, somewhere nearby, death was falling. But there was one fatal flaw. The V-1 was wildly inaccurate. It couldn't hit specific military targets, only cities. Germany needed precision, not chaos. They needed a way to aim the bomb. And that's where the nightmare truly began. The birth of a monster, from drone to manned death machine. The logic was horrifyingly simple. If an autopilot can't hit a target, then let a human steer it straight into the enemy. And so, the Reichenberg project was born. Named after the city of Reichenberg, now Liberec, Czech Republic, it symbolized the Nazi vision of a greater Germany. The assignment went to Henschel Werke under engineer Willy Fiedler. Their job? Take a disposable flying bomb and make it flyable by a person. Imagine this design brief. Take a fuel tank and a ton of explosives, add a seat, and make it controllable. And, if possible, give the pilot a tiny chance to survive. They squeezed in a cockpit, stripped out the autopilot, replaced it with crude levers and cables, and lengthened the fuselage by 10 inches, just enough for a man to fit. Training versions even had a second cockpit for an instructor in the nose, a surreal, almost cynical touch. But engineers knew it was madness. The V-1's frame wasn't built for stress. It was disposable, a flying shell never meant to land. Now, they were putting humans inside it. Trials from Hell, the suicide flights. September 1944. The first flight tests begin. Unpowered Reichenbergs were carried aloft under Heinkel He-111 bombers, then released to glide. The first test ended in tragedy. The pilot accidentally jettisoned the canopy, was knocked unconscious by the slipstream, and crashed. The next day, another crash. Still, the test continued. Who were these pilots? Not fanatics or kamikazes. Many were young glider pilots, pressured by propaganda, promised glory and redemption for Germany. Some volunteered, others were assigned. Among the testers was the legendary Hannah Reich, Germany's most famous female test pilot and close associate of Göring. She flew several Reichenberg prototypes herself, trying to understand why so many crashed. Her verdict was grim. The aircraft stalled at high speeds, and the untrained pilots simply couldn't handle it. And then there was the engine, the Argus AS-014 pulse jet. It didn't run smoothly, it hammered. Each combustion was a mini explosion. The vibration was so violent that the fuselage literally shook apart midair. November 5th, 1944. Test pilot Heinz Kinch is flying a Reichenberg trainer. Mid-flight, a wing tears clean off. He miraculously escapes by parachute, barely surviving. Others weren't so lucky. March 5th, 1945, Lieutenant Walter Starbody takes off for another test. At 9,000 feet, both wings snap. The plane disintegrates, killing him instantly. The cause? Metal fatigue from relentless vibration. After that, the project was finished. Germany was collapsing. The dream of a miracle weapon had rotted into a nightmare. Economics and ethics of suicide. Was a Reichenberg ever viable? No, militarily, economically, or morally. It was slow, unstable, and an easy target for Allied fighters. Launching it required a vulnerable bomber. It was more dangerous to its own pilots than to the enemy. Each Reichenberg cost far more than a V-1, especially when you factor in pilot training. And every flight destroyed not only the plane, but a trained pilot Germany couldn't replace. A nation starving for manpower was now building weapons that consumed its last pilots. The Reichenberg marked the final moral collapse of the Nazi regime. Human beings became expendable components, the most fragile parts of a doomed machine. Silence in the museum. Today, only a few Reichenbergs remain, silent exhibits in museums in France and Switzerland. They sit behind glass, harmless now, yet radiating a cold, unsettling story. The Reichenberg never became a weapon. It became a monument to desperation, to moral decay, to the horrifying places technology can take us when guided by ideology instead of ethics. It asks us to reflect. What Reichenbergs are being built today? What projects are we pursuing that seem brilliant, efficient, but blind us to their human cost? Friends, we've walked together through this dark and haunting story. Now I'd love to hear from you. Do you think the Reichenberg could have changed anything if it had been deployed? And where do you draw the line between heroism and meaningless sacrifice? Share your thoughts below. Your perspective builds this community. And don't forget to subscribe, because there are many more hidden stories waiting to be uncovered. Thank you for staying until the end. Would you like me to adapt it further for a YouTube narration script, with pacing cues, emotional emphasis, and screen direction, e.g., when it cut to archival footage, sound effects, or music? That version would sound more natural when read aloud.